What is up, guys, in the OTK family? If you've read the title, you know what we're going into. This is my updated Gear Chronicle S post the next stage, and after a few weeks of testing, this is the build I've come up to. First off, as you can see, my starter is Chrono Dragon, that beautiful SP. This project's going to take a lot out of me, guys. My project's to SP this whole deck out since it's my main. But first off, Chrono Dragon, basic skills, on ride draw, and if your great opponent is a grade 1 when you ride, get a quick shield. Easy stuff. On to the actual deck. So first up, we're starting with 4 Chrono Dragon next stage. Grade 4, Twin Drive, 15k. His main ability is, at the end of the battle, this unit attacked. Grade 3 Vanguard. Your opponent's grade 3 Vanguard. Discard 2 cards. Rewrite a Chronojet Dragon from Soul as stand, and it gains 15k. But you may not write another card at the end of turn. I really enjoy this card. It feels nice that it's kind of like the old days. The 15k does really make some fun numbers here. Part of his skill is one reason I do run Force 2 a lot. I'm in the process. I did alter this deck, though, from the original list I had to where it can fit going between the two a lot easier than just, oh, I go Force 2 every game. Now I'm at a point where I can go Force 2 or Force 1 on the flip of a hat, depending on how my scenario is going. The other grade 4 I run is one interdimensional beast, Metallica Phoenix. This is literally your first ride ability. Your first ride, if you went first on Chronojet, this is the first superior ride you go into. It has triple drive, which is very useful because it helps move you up a couple turns hand-wise, as well as keeps you pretty neutral. But either though that's really good, you don't usually go into it a lot, and that's why I only run it at 1. Some people run it at 2. That's up to you. Then for grade 3s, being that this is a Gear Chronicle deck, we only run 4. And due to it being Chronojet, Chrono Dragon next stage, we have Chronojet. Chronojet's skill is Act Vanguard Circle. You may discard cards from hand equal to the grade 3. If you do, superior ride a grade 4 from deck. And at the end of turn, retire that unit and rewrite this and rest. Now, that's really good because it helps accelerate your force markers, so you don't have to worry about having to keep rewriting to generate force markers. But if you want to rewrite, okay, you get a force marker ahead of time, and it just keeps scaling up as long as the game goes. This is one reason a lot of people choose Force 1, because the more force markers you can get, the dangerous next stage gets, which means the dangerous Chronojet gets. The more dangerous Chronojet gets, the longer the game goes. The second skill is Auto. Counterblast 1. When this unit attacks, give it +5. This is a Vanguard and Rearguard skill, and your opponent cannot use Sentinels. Why this is good? Because on Force 2, after a next stage turn, if they do not have the hand, this thing is punching them in the face for crit 2. On a Force 1, same scenario, but this is hitting your hand more than it's hitting your damage. So if Force 1, you've probably got 2 to 3 markers on here. So not only is that already 28, but say 2 to 3 markers. So you're looking at a 38 to 48, plus the extra 5 off boosters. So around 53 or more, 43 and up. This card literally will cause damage and almost can guarantee damage unless your opponent's willing to sacrifice their hand for it. And that's one of the most beautiful things about this card, as well as it can be used as a rear guard. And if I decide my Force 2 method, this on a rear guard is just as dangerous as a Vanguard. Because, okay, I do my twin drives, I get crit triggers, give them to the rear guard Chronojet. And this just gets crazy. On to grade 2s. The first grade 2 I run, that is a mandatory 4 of in this deck, is 4 Smoke Gear Dragon. His skill, Auto. When this unit attacks a Vanguard, it gains 5k. meaning this is a 15k attacker on Vanguard and Rearguard Circle. Now, the second skill virtually only happens when you're on Rearguard, where when it's doing this attack, you can Soul Blast 1 if you wrote a grade 4 this turn and draw a card. You're going to use his version of draw a lot more than other cards in the deck that I use. Another card I use in my deck for that skill. But that's not really why he's run. He's really run for his second skill. His second skill is continuous. If my Vanguard is Chronojet Dragon, any card I discard from hand is considered a grade 3. Now, why this is good is because it allows you to free up space in your deck for other units to play with. And this makes it so every card you use is a 3. Now, if you're playing the Force 2 permanent version, you're going to run a card named Maiden. Her skill is when you ride, you draw a card. If you do, discard a card. If it's a grade 3, give 3 units plus 5. That's why this works with that. But overall, this is a really strong card, especially because it helps with our discard costs. This alone actually turns a 1 card into a possible 2 cards into a 1. I also play 3 Ercob. Now, we all know if you're a gear player, you know what Ercob does. But for those who don't, Vanguard Rearguard Circle, counterblast 1, discard a card, give your Vanguard an extra drive check. So virtually, this is a Blaster Dark. Just costs a lot more. And is a little more guaranteed than Blaster Dark, to be honest. And its other skills, when discard is considered a 3. I still run it because as of right now, until Silver Dust Blaze come, this is still a really good card for the deck. When Silver Dust Blaze comes, I'm most likely going to down it to about 2, but I'm not going to get rid of it because it's still valuable, but its effectiveness goes down because not that many matchups really die to attack pressure. Next up, I also run 3 Navoo. 3 Mechanic Navoo. Her skill is when she attacks, bind a card from drop zone. Your opponent cannot guard with grade 1s or higher. This is literally one of your other finishers for the deck. She's really strong for that factor. Against certain decks coming in the future, she's definitely going to be strong. One deck in particular I have been testing against with the other guys of Team OTK is against Harry. If you make it to the point where Harry players cannot guard properly, this card hurts. Because of how their deck works, this card alone can shut down a lot of Harry's guarding, especially if they've had to burn all their triggers towards your next stage and your Chronojet swings. This alone says, okay, now that Magia guarding you do does not work anymore. Also, it generates soul at the end of turn because it will go in, I draw a card. With that, this helps keep maintaining the cards that require Soul Blast, as well as it keeps adding a card to hand for what it just did. The last grade 2 I run in deck is I run 2 Stoboscope Dragon. Now, this card here is the most debatable card for the entire deck. And the reason this card is debatable for the entire deck is solely because you have the skill of, after it swings, I Soul Blast 1, discard a card, retire a unit. Now, that to me is actually a really good skill. And if I have a grade 4, it allows me to draw. Now, what's good about this skill is it helps you to control your opponent's board, while if you're, say, on your first superior ride, this allows you to make use of the factor on Metallica. You can retire a unit, draw a unit. That's really good, and all that counts as a soul. Now, it requires you to be on a 4 to get the draw. For me, that's not a big deal, though, because the retirement helps. There are times, this card, I literally stab people for their guards. And what I mean by that is, while boosted, this card is 18. On a force marker, it can be a 20. That alone means I can hit a rear guard for nothing. And what that will usually cause is because a lot of people I play forget Stoboscope can retire. So what that does is, when I swing at the rear guard, this kills 2 for 1. And that's without using any other cards to support this. Now, is that is that kind of viable? For right now, it is and it isn't, because there's not many decks that require pieces. Now, once we get to Silver Dust Blaze and sets after that, Stroboscope's most likely for me going to go up to 3 when I take Ercob down, because this will replace doing what Ercob was doing as that important piece, a grade 2 piece for support. Now, I also could just kick Ercob out and make this go 4, and that would be fine, but the extra drive checks do still help depending on matchups. Now we're going into my grade 1s. The main grade 1 of all clans at this point is your grade 3 Searcher. Ours is Steam Breath Dragon. His continuous skill is on a turn. During the turn, if you discarded a card, he gains +5. Really easy skill for Gear Chronicle. The second skill, the main skill is on ride, look top 5, get a 3, discard. So like everyone else, you search. We really need these though, because this helps us find that Chronojet in time. If we see it, cool. If we don't, we don't. But it also helps shuffle, because honestly, we really only care about that +5, and that's almost guaranteed every turn. The other grade 1 I run is for Chrono Toothigger. And yes, I have 4 of these. For all you guys who are like, these cards are expensive, they were before the set dropped. When the set originally dropped, they were not that expensive. I got my hands on my playset a while ago. I also had multiples, but that's a whole nother story. Chrono Toothigger's skill is at the beginning of your turn, before your ride phase, draw an additional card. So what that means is on your turn, if you go first, this card's virtually I drove check. So what it does is ride, you get your draw from your starter. During your next turn at the beginning, after you've drawn, this skill triggers, you get another card. That gives you a +1 beginning of your turn 2. Now, has this saved my life? Yes. This card has literally gotten me out of so much trouble, it's not even funny. And it's just on that skill. It has got me from being great stuck. It has gotten me from being great stuck. It's gotten my hands from being horrible. It's just done a lot. His second skill also helps. It is, when discarded by an effect on my turn, counterblast 1, superior card from drop zone, and draw a card. That's really good because it gives you a free draw. Now, for those of you who have been aware of Steam Scar Ribble, the promo Japan's getting because of the next stage and the try-through trial deck selling out, this is one half of Ribble. The other half is the other part of my grade 1 lineup. And you'll understand why Ribble's going to be amazing. My last grade 1 is for Quickie Worker. Now, if you guys saw my original build, I did not run this card. And originally I was like, there's no point to it. You can ride next stages. You don't need to worry about it. Doesn't help. I had been wrong. I was wrong there. Because this card literally fixes one problem this deck has, as well as making sure you never run out of chrono next stages. And that one problem this deck solves, this card solves, is the incidence of seeing this. And what I mean by saying Metallica Phoenix is there are times when you will draw into Metallica Phoenix instead of being able to superior ride into it. And more often than not, for me at this point, it's been, I've seen this before grade 3, so I've been able to get rid of it again. And then go right back in, and then Quickie has helped fix this situation. Now, one thing it clashes with, for all honesty though, is the fact it requires a 2 Soul Blast to give me a draw. That's fine, but the important part is the skill of when it's placed, I get to put normally any card for my drop to the bottom. If it's grade 3 or higher, Soul Blast 2, I can Soul Blast 2, draw a card. Sometimes I do it, if it comes early enough, I'll do the Soul Blast, get the card, call it a day. If it happens late game, depending on the scenario, I might not even use the draw. I'll just put a next stage back and continue my play. But it's also still an 8K booster, so it's viable. Now on the triggers. First up, I run 6 regular crits, and I run 2 Sentinel crits. Now, some people might be wondering why I run 2 Sentinel crits. My reasoning behind these cards is because of how the game is changing. This is more of a meta change than it is a budget change. The reason for that is because these decks now are getting a lot of power and are requiring a lot more guard costs. So my mindset is, by using 2 Sentinel crits instead of 2 draw PGs, I'm subverting the necessity of losing a 3rd card on guard restrictions. And if you don't know what I'm referring to, a lot of cards now are getting the skill where you have to guard 2 or more. Honestly, by using this instead, you can get around that by, okay, 2 or more, that's fine. But I'm still going to guard 2 cards instead of 1 because I'm using this and another card instead of going PG, discard a card, and still have to drop another. And this sort of saves your hand from having to be overused every turn, for me. I've never really had a problem when I've seen these. These actually have saved my life a lot. And since you see that, you can probably guess how the rest of my lineup is. I run 2 regular draws. I use Lucky Pot Draco Kid because he is part of the Chrono Shindo bunch. So since I am a gear main, I decided to go Lucky Pot because loyalty. Then I run 2 draw PGs. No reason, no questioning on why I'm doing that. But by separating my Sentinels, this gives me a better open window of my guard requirements. As well as they will have to account for both types of triggers, both types of Sentinels. And if they're not paying attention, this can save me faster than that can. And then last but not least, 4 heals, and they are Steam, Maiden, Uluru. Mama is back, and she is with the deck. And I love her that she's back. Now that that's the deck, I'm going to discuss the trigger marker options. Now, everybody so far can pretty much agree that Chronojet virtually can be on either one of these markers. And that is 100% true. He could be a Force 1 or he can be a Force 2. For me, a lot of times I did run him on Force 2, and I had to rely a lot on seeing triggers because my rear guard suffered. Force 1, though, makes it so your rear guards don't have to completely suffer. Next stage is a bigger threat every turn, as well as once you go Chronojet, he's a heavier threat because now your opponent has to guard more. Would I say playing both is wrong? No, both are perfectly fine. And that is why my deck is kind of the way in the situation it is now with the Stoboscopes, because it gives me the opening I need to run both methods. While Ercob is mainly in the deck as the main point, that means Force 2 for me can be a little more, can be happening more often, but Force 1's still here, so I can do that too. I would say, depending on your matchups, Force 1 is more optimal. I have been playtesting against one of my friends who's proxied out the entire Messiah deck. Force 2 is really strong against it, but my win rate's kind of 50-50, and I'm going to try using Force 1 against that to see what happens. And I think it's going to work out a lot better. Against Altmile, it's 50-50 because they kind of just got the guard for everything. For Asha, another 50-50 because depending on how the game goes, Force 1's more beneficial, and Force 2's more beneficial depending on when you hit your first Superior Ride. If you hit Superior Ride first, I would honestly say just go Force 1 against Asha. If you go second, go Force 2. try to hurt the hand a little more and keep it pushing. But honestly, I'm really enjoying the deck. I can't wait to see what support the deck gets after, and I really hope we get that token, those promos for the decks that Japan will be getting due to the re-releasing. Because if we do, this deck gets bonkers. And those Quickie Workers get kicked out for a grade 1 that can be an 18k with making the deck a multi-attacker. And if you're wondering, like, how is there a multi-attack? Trust me, that card makes multi-attacks. But that's been the deck, guys. So please remember, like, comment, subscribe. Tell us what you want to see in there. And I want to apologize for you guys about the anime reviews. There really hasn't been much plot-wise. So I'm most likely going to just do bundles. Like after 4 or 5 episodes, I'll probably just bundle them together for a review. And go from there. Because if these episodes doesn't give any like plot relevance to push the story on, I'd rather not waste you guys' time per video. So yeah, see you in the next one. Hope you liked it. And Chronojet's back, Gear Chronicles for life, and double heal crit sack. Let's go.